All right. Welcome to this live stream brought to you from two locations today. The first location would be Chicago, Illinois, with my friend Gerry Hundt, who is tuning in today to talk to us about this cool topic, composition of blues harmonica instrumentals, specifically from the perspective of some tunes that we've written together. And I am tuning in from Longmont, Colorado. And first of all, I want to say thanks, Jerry, man. I appreciate you checking out. I mean, joining, not checking out, joining the stream today, man. How's the morning going?
Oh, it's going all right so far, just taking it easy. I played tonight at Kingston Mines, so getting my wits about me slowly.
Beautiful. So if you're in and around Chicago, make sure you head on down to the Kingston Mines tonight to see Jerry perform. I see somebody's tuning in from Turkey. Welcome, David. We're tuning in today to talk to you about a class that I'm offering tomorrow. This class called Composing Blues Harmonica Instrumentals, which really is the idea behind the class is to give you insight as to some of the things that I think about and that I've noticed in classic harmonica instrumentals and other instrumentals, and kind of give you a somewhat of a step by step little process and way to think about how you might go about doing it on your own. So Jerry's had this brilliant idea of joining to talk about his kind of perspective of what was going on with some of these recordings. Jerry, I thought maybe we would start by kind of mentioning the recording names and where they come from in case somebody wants to go back. The songs, the two songs that come from Hangover Blues Volume 1 that will be in the class are called La Rumba de la Casa Roja and Ronnie's Mood. So those are come from Hangover Blues Volume 1. All this can be found on, if you just Google Cellist Bandcamp. And the other one is an older release, Till Then, that I released in 2012 with, again, Jerry on that. And that song title is called Mook. It was a very loose instrumental. We can talk about that. The final one was on our newest release from the Dig 3 called Blanco Bugaloo. Jerry, where should we start?
Well, I think it's important to note that when you're composing an instrumental, especially like in blues or even particularly in blues or improvised music, like you can have different levels of structure. And I would say of the ones you mentioned, I would say that Blanco Bugaloo had the most structure and the most forethought. Um, I want to make that point, and then the other point was and Ronnie, you know this from working with me in the studio, is a lot of times the easiest way to stimulate your creativity is to start with a song you already like and then change one thing about it, or if it's a riff, play it backwards.
Nice. Yeah, that's a really good one that I forgot about. The idea of playing something backwards. And can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so basically it's like okay, say you have like a line like juke da 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 da. Well, why not go da 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 da,
Right.
or like it's playing things in the reverse order that you know them or have learned them. Um, maybe instead of starting on a two draw and bending down, you start on the bend and pull it back up to pitch, to the tonic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's really easy. It's a lot easier to do than you think. And like it's fun to learn stuff by the record, but eventually you're going to want to start expressing yourself differently. And it doesn't have to be like this lightning bolt epic, like being inspired by, the muses or whatever. It can simply be just changing something you like into something that's your own. I mean, we did that. I mean, to go slightly adrift here, the the tune on the latest Dig 3 album, All the Love That I Got, I basically said, well, I kind of want it to be something just like Walking by Myself, but it's our own thing,
Oh,
right?
okay. Yeah.
So in the case of Blanco Boogaloo, going back to the instrumentals, Ron, Ronnie had entered. Wait, when did we record all that? Anyway, that was sort of our nod to Little Sonny, right? Like that we, you
Yeah.
know, we we're like all into Little Sunny, like for, you know, well, whatever, a couple months around that. We're like, well, we need to do something, you know. And that particular, the main part of the riff, like I mentioned, what came from gigs that Andrew and I were doing in Chicago with a proper rhythm section, you know, bass and drums. And I wanted a way for him to be able to sing his song Town Saint. So one night I was just like da 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 da, you know, and then we just kind of expanded on that.
That little line that you're singing. So, folks, when you go listen to the song, you'll hear the harp take that little line that he just. Let me play it for you so you can hear it. It's on a G harmonica. The song does use multiple positions, but which also became this cool thing we could talk about the signal for a chord change, which introduced kind of another section of the song where also composition wise, the harmonica is making adjustments that I'll point out more detailed in class. But let's talk about that a little bit, sort of the signal portion of it. Really, a lot of the composition arrangement stuff does come from Gerry. I want to give full credit here to anything I've ever recorded with Gerry. The composition, the structure, and a lot of the ideas that go into it come either directly from Gerry or through some collaborative efforts between us or all of us. This idea to, hey, I don't remember who came up, maybe it was Gerry specifically said, play that, it'll bring around. But we talked about it and we all decided that was a great idea. To play this thing 4 times. Is it 4 times that I play? I think it's 4 times.
Yeah, it's the hits, yeah.
Yeah. So you can hear that in the song and know that that was absolutely pre-planned. And when you're working on instrumentals, this is a great way to create more of a thematic approach where you're using repetition because that does come up a couple times in the song and it's loose. What I love about it is that I can just go there whenever I want to signal the chord change.
Yeah, it's a way to, it's actually having a structure like that is actually very liberating because like you don't have to count how many times you've gone around, the band doesn't have to count. No, you can just play and we can groove and everything is cool. But then when we hear ba da ba ba da ba, okay, now we're bringing it back. Da 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 da. Here we go. Da 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 da. And then the chord change.
Yeah.
And we do the little extra part there. You know, the 4 and then the 5 and then we bring it back around. And I think that's just a great way to like keep everything loose while still maintaining that cohesion, because you want to include that that melodic idea. That's kind of our, I don't know, that little turnaround. It always kind of reminds me of like a Booker T and the MGs kind of thing, where like it's a break with like a little guitar, funky guitar, and then we're back into the groove.
Yeah. And what I think is cool about all the instrumentals that I've ever recorded with Gerry, where the harp took center stage, it's not prepared, it's improvised. But let's make no mistake about something, which is while they do tend to be looser, like there's not necessarily always a distinct hook or head, let's say, that is played. There is absolutely repetition, and when I go back and listen to these, I think I've gotten pretty good, Gerry can speak for it, at recreating a decent amount of the ideas that I played from the original, because it's key. If somebody knows that song, they're going to want to hear a decent amount of that come back around. And so you can do it improvised, but you don't need to. You can work with somebody, a guitarist or your whole band, and take a minute and work on ideas similar to this that come from the perspective of structure, not just melody. So if it was just melodic perspective, it would all be about what is the harp going to do here? What's the harp going to do there? But that is often contingent or connected to or feeding off of what Gerry comes up with for this signal or for the change, or let's stay in this section and change position work. Like I ended up changing position in this song. It was a little looser, the position work change up. It kind of happened when it happened, and there was not very much thought. But y'all could put thought into it. There's my Texas coming out. Y'all could do that. You could stop and think about, on the one chord, I'm going to stick to second, and when it goes to a bridge, I really want to go and explore another position, but only for the bridge. These are the types of things that I think that are fun. The creative process becomes like as loose or as tight as you want it to be. When we're recording, we just like to keep it loose because I feel like the energy gets captured better. So let's move to a different song. We also recorded on that same, not on that CD, but on an earlier CD. Let's talk about Ronnie's Mood, which is just a Chicago like shuffle thing. But something cool happened on that one, man. Is there anything you could talk about from the perspective of what you were thinking?
It was a sound check.
It was a
That's it.
jam.
It was a
Yeah.
sound check. We were getting sounds in the studio, just making sure everything sounded good. We were recording in my house in Indiana at the time, and I just wanted to make sure everything sounded cool, and it was really just loose. I think it's I wouldn't say it's like a strictly Chicago thing. It has a little bit of a
Yeah.
Texas swing to it. It does pick up the tempo a little bit, like halfway through, but that's okay. I mean, it never gets out of control, and it's just kind of, what Eddie Kobeck, the drummer, said. And I think you went to the restroom, or we're out of the room, and we were listening to the playback of that, and he said, man, Ronnie's just all about the pocket, that guy. Like, he's always in the groove, and it's always swinging. And I think that's important for like a shuffle instrumental, is that you're in the
Yeah.
groove. And of course you could play with being out of the groove too, or out, or like rushing, or playing behind the beat. But that particular one just has a nice, easy kind of feel to it. Andrew Duncanson is playing bass on that, of all things. And yeah, there's nothing to, it's just not hurried about it. I mean, that was, Hangover Blues. That was the mood. We were just like, okay, you know.
Yeah, but and then what's cool like about the recreation of this loose sort of like sound check that strictly speaking, technically it's an instrumental because there's no vocals and it's just, it's just we're playing and there's just the harp doing its thing and then the guitar takes a solo as well. Same with Ruma de la Casa Roja. It's same thing. We're trading, but thematically, when I go back to play it, I always think of the hook. The hook being that first lick that just
Yeah.
I don't even know if I can. Let's see if I can. Let's listen to it. I have it queued up.
Yeah,
Why
it's
don't we
da
play it?
da 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 or whatever.
Let's hear it. Sorry. Now, if I don't play it exact, like when we ever do something similar, and it's like we've never really called the tune. I don't know how many times we've actually called it, but that's where I would be going. And later in class tomorrow, when we talk about this topic, I'll talk about how that might become a tighter instrumental by developing that hook or that lick as something that not only I come back to, but that I stretch out and develop and feed off of, and
Yeah,
that
didn't
is
don't
key.
don't you play it twice, or at least do
Yeah,
something
here. Let's
similar?
hear it. Here it is. Let's just listen to it. That's the 4. Back to the 1. The 5 chord signals the change up. So I repeat the line with a slight adjustment, a pickup note or two into the 4 chord line. So I bring in that like essentially 4 draw 5 blow or in octave format. But notice that you can play these lines across the whole 12 bars, which is a cool little lesson in and of itself. We don't need to constantly adjust to chord changes. It's kind of cool not to do it.
Yeah, it is, and it's also cool to do it. Like, it
Yep.
just depends on how you want to do it, because like actually what the feeling that I just got from listening to the playback again, and I listened to Mook before we came on here, but not this one, and it was almost this, when you started it out, it almost feels like Big John Rencher to me. It's like very like just honk, it's like it's just it's getting the party started, just like it's almost
Yeah.
an Elmore James kind of a, like, a guitar, like analogous to like an Elmore James thing, like on guitar. Like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, time to party,
It's funny how it's easy as a harmonica player to get caught up in wanting to just like, let's go to town and let me just wreck this. Let me just get in there and dazzle the people. But really what sets it apart by not doing that is the space and the simplicity of these lines just allowing you to be raw and emotional,
Well,
like
that
Big
you've got
John.
somewhere to go. I mean, that's the whole thing too, is like if we're going to talk about instrumentals in general, like all the Freddie King instrumentals, like they go somewhere, they tell a story. Like, and it's not because you're dropping all your bags of trick right out in the middle of the. I mean, even a harp tune like "Blowing the Family Jewels,"
Yeah.
William Clark has a lot of repetition in it, and it builds excitement, it builds tension, and it tells a story, and I think that's a really important thing to think about.
Good
um
point. Yeah, taking somebody on a journey rather than like, for example, Mook. Let's jump ahead to a different
sure.
release.
Yep.
Mook is the opposite. So Mook was a swing number, an up tempo kind of swing blues, and I just had the idea of using three positions, first, second, and third, which is something I'd never really explored, especially first position for swing. I was like, let's just see what happens. So the song starts off with one of those kind of, this kind of this line, but from there there's no thought and there's no real good thematic stuff happening and going on. If I could redo it, I could have at least brought it back around to the intro, or I could have worked on developing a little tighter of a message or storyline, as Gerry's saying, throughout. But hey, hindsight is always 2020, and that was, no pun intended, 2012. So like I've learned a lot since then. And if you listen to Blanco Bugaloo, I think there's a big difference between like the sound of Mook to jumping ahead, almost 10 years, well, 10 years actually. And listening to what was done there, it's a whole different vibe and approach. So there's not much. Is there anything you would add to like the swing thing? Was just like, let's swing, let's just see what
Yeah,
happens.
for Mook, I feel like, didn't we discuss that you and Jeremy would trade licks at the end, like, because that's what
Correct.
happens. Yeah, so that
Correct.
was kind of the only thing that we really decided on, and I think that was just based on stuff you were doing live. And then I think Bob, sensing the end of the tune was near and whatever, he just kicked it up a notch for the last two go rounds and changed up what he was doing to kind of say, let's wrap this up, because we're dragging on here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's, I definitely think that, and I do remember that after you released the record and we played some gigs, you would call Mook and you would play like maybe the first 12 bars almost like the record, and then you'd kind of do your own thing, which is, great. I mean, I think if
Yeah.
you listen to all the alternate takes of Juke, it's different every time.
Yes.
So, it's a moment in time that you're capturing on the record or live,
Yeah.
and I think really more in terms of like calling a tune like that, you're not only like saying something, you're trying to identify something that you want to create live, but you're telling the band what you want. Like, oh, okay, like that, the fast tune, like we did like that, but like not necessarily playing it the same, but oh,
Yeah.
let's do a tune like this.
And I do think that at least the first line's nice to capture. You just want to bring something reminiscent of what you did to create some of the vibe. And so like we didn't play it, but Blanco Boogaloo, just for we've talked about it a couple times, sounds like this. So I'm switching gears. I'm just being clear. I'm totally switching away from Mook. This is the funky number that was recorded on Damn the Rent, the most recent release from the Dig 3. There's a switch up in position right there. Random switch up just to third position all of a sudden.
But I
There,
but I think
yeah.
it's cool that you did two legato ideas, but accomplished it different ways.
Oh,
Like
cool. Yeah.
you started with the warble, and then you finished that, and then you did a single note. But it's still like a long
Legato.
thing,
Yeah.
a long note or whatever. But it was accomplished two different ways, and that's a way of doing something too.
And the third position stuff is much more staccatoed and rapid fire and like here, like all third still. The signal. So then the band moves. So the band's playing the line, and I tagged the same line to signal the change. You can hear them playing throughout the whole song, right? That they came up with. This is kind of the groove for the whole song that is built off this, but it also becomes the harp signal the only time I play it with them to signal the change. These are good. This is a great example of a tighter instrumental that we worked on. And the final one is back on that Hangover Blues, La Rumba de la Casa Rojo, some of my favorite stuff that I've ever recorded just from my own personal perspective. Something about it just feels very on all parts. And by the way, let me be very clear. The reason I'm so attracted to what we accomplished together and why I think it's some of the better playing, it's some of my favorite stuff, is due to what Gerry is playing specifically on the guitar. The way in which he's playing it, the chord changes, it had everything to do with that. If he had just played a standard rumba without those cool, you could talk a little bit about some of the chord stuff if you remember, but like it's not a normal rumba, folks, and it just has certain chords that sound so different to my ear without I'm ignorant. I can't talk about it the way you can, but that's what made me play the way I played on it. So, should we play a little and then have you mention, or do you want to, would
Sure,
you
go
rather,
ahead. Play
that'll
a little bit.
refresh your memory, but here's what it
Oh,
sounds like. By the way, the end of the song, we ran out of tape, so we faded it. This way it's a 2-minute song with a fade.
yep.
And listen to the tremolo.
Nice.
All right, let's take a pause. There's a lot of things you do that are different than if we had gone to like a blues jam and said play a rumba, what we would have gotten, right? So what are
Yeah,
some of the elements?
instead of doing like your kind of typical like very staccato Latin rhythm part, instead I don't just in the moment I did more of like a jazzy, just like I'm just basically holding chords like more like a jazz player would do. And because Eddie is actually playing, I don't if you remember, he's playing the snare with his bare hands
That's right.
to sound like a conga or whatever.
I forgot.
Yeah, he's playing the snare drum with the snares off with his bare hands. So that really sounds like a conga. So it's pretty busy, So like for me to stack another kind of busier guitar part on top or whatever would be kind of cluttered. So instead, yeah, just like kind of dreamy, full sounding chords with some jazzy extensions like the sixth,
That's what I
and
was
then
going to mention. The sixth came in so around the turnaround, or at least in the 5 chord zone.
yeah, and then on the next go around on the second where you actually hit the note is a ninth. So it's like it's even jazzier and like kind of moodier sounding. And it's a specific voicing of it that isn't too cluttered. So it's like it's this very clean, like, and then you nailed that, that the seventh there, and it's very it's a total vibe change. It's cool.
Yeah, so I'm getting a little bit of an education on the song right now too, as well here, which is to say that like all of what he just described, the longer holds, the tremolo, the vibe that Eddie said on the drums, and not doing a standard like 12 bar type of progress, adding some jazzier chords in there. Man, that is what set off the harp. There's no way I would have come up with or played those things without those elements. Now, did we prepare any of this? Nope. It was
I don't
just
think so. I think we just decided to do a rumba. Oh, let's bring it in from the five. Let's do it in Ronnie. What key do you like? And you said F.
yeah, but here's what's cool. In the moment, I remember deciding to be intentional with repetition, which I'm going to get into some of that detail tomorrow in this class that you can learn about at harmonica123.com on the homepage, composing blues instrumentals. But I remember playing this line and lifting it to like the blue note, almost the three draw. And I was like, I should probably do that again, but let's see if I can vary it and flat it just down to the minor third there.
Yeah, that's the chord change.
And the response lick was also a different interval going to the one draw. That I remembered, that I came back to. If I didn't come back to it later, every time I play it, this is in my head.
Right.
And I actually have more than that now in my head from the song. I can play, a lot of it just comes back to you after you play it and listen to it enough. You start to be like, oh, you have creative choices at that point to say, I'm going to kind of go back and play it very similar, or I'm going to depart and really just do something completely unique. But that one was one of my favorites, man. And it's funny how sometimes the less you analyze it and think about it, the more the better it comes out, the more organic it feels. But I think in the beginning stages, for somebody that's wondering what's the point of this stream or what should I be taking from it, it's that you have all these things to consider. It's not just the melody, it's the rhythm, it's the act, it's all the other components that are going on, the harmony, other things that you can tweak or play with or consider, the tempo, to include a bridge or not, and those are the things where you start to dial in a tighter version of an instrumental that you can come back to.
Yep.
It's good stuff, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk about it this morning too.
Well, and I think it's worth exploring the topic so that you can listen to other instrumentals and appreciate the fact that, oh, well, they put a bridge in, or there's a bridge, or there's a, like, oh, okay, well, that's cool. Or this is obviously based on another instrumental, but they're doing their own thing. I don't know. And, and also, I mean, if you want to talk about like taking something, and doing your own thing with it, like Big Walter's easy, right? Like iconic, but it's a melody line. It's since I lost my baby, I lost my mind. It's a pop tune. And he took and made it a cool blues harp instrumental. So,
you're making me think of Careless Love randomly.
Exactly. Same kind of deal. Yeah.
So what I did for class, Gerry, is I made a playlist of, I don't know, maybe 15 to 20, maybe even more at this point, but just the top sort of blues harp instrumentals that it hit me the hardest, or that most people have latched onto and tried to learn. But then a few beyond that, like for example, That's It by Little Walter, which is that third position one. I don't know if that's coming to your brain, but it's like the one that goes, it has that cool, it's like, that's how it starts. And it has this.
Yeah.
And it's just incredible. So there's a lot of more obscure ones that come up where like, you could hear what he did in that when he grabbed like a Koch chromatic. I think it's called a Koch, Koch, or another weird harmonica that
Yeah.
totally changed the vibe of the song. There's all these cool little things that come up. And so in class, we're going to listen to a lot of those instrumentals and try to notice similarities and differences between them to try to learn from them as well. Thanks for joining today. For those that are on the stream, good to see you. With my good friend Gerry Hundt tuning in from Chicago. If you're in Chicago tonight, go to and around, go to the Kingston Mines. Get hip, okay? Jerry's going to be there. What's the lineup tonight, Gerry?
It's Nora Jean, and I believe Nora Jean Wallace, the great blues singer, and her band, and I believe it's Joe Doyle, who's an up and coming singer and guitar player here in Chicago.
Beautiful. Um, you're not performing tonight then?
No, no, no. I'm doing the early set.
That's what I thought. Okay, so you
So
can
it's
catch Jerry. What
I'm
time do you
on at
start?
7:30 to 9 p.m.
Okay, 7:30 to 9. Be sure to catch the early set to catch the one-man show. The one-man show is incredible. Jerry will at least have his foot drums and guitar, I bet, for Kingston Mines, and or if at least something to keep the groove going.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, all I can say is thanks for jumping on to help us understand a little more of the background to some of these instrumentals that we'll go deeper into in class and talk about. If you want to learn more about Jerry and his music, you can always go to Steady Groove. Is there a better website at this point than Steady Groove for your general music?
I actually sold that domain. So
Oh,
I'm now just jerryhunt.com.
okay. So it's not with a J, folks. GerryHundt.com.
You
Go
got it.
check it out and go download some of his music if you really want to get good at blues harmonica. That's what you got to
And you
do.
can pre-order Damn the Rent vinyl at echobase.com. We're pressing up vinyl copies of Damn the Rent, and so Blanco Bugaloo will be on wax, and
Ah,
uh, and as well as Chuck and Willie, the other instrumental. And yeah, so echobase.com, you can do that.
I'll put that link in the video description as well as a product link to tomorrow's class. Y'all make it a fantastic day. And Jerry, I hope it's a great gig tonight. And I'll catch up with you very soon, my friend.
All right, sir. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. See you guys.